Thank you, Stephen, and thanks everyone for the opportunity to speak. I was chatting to Mary at lunch and I was saying, it's like I found my people. Absolutely passionate about pulses and particularly Australian sweet lupin. Always been an integral part of Wide Open Agriculture's strategy to get more people growing lupins and to get that market price up. So to hear some of those early introductory talks, it really just kind of reinforced that position, and great to be with you all. So for those of you that don't know Wide Open Agriculture, we're an ASX listed and public company with a commitment to regenerative food and farming here in Western Australia. We are also carbon neutral certified, which is kind of a statement of our commitment. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. Here we go. There's a disclaimer, just because we are publicly listed. I won't be telling you anything that the rest of the market doesn't know, so feel free, and of course this will be made public as Peter said. So essentially we're a vertically integrated food brand. Dirty Clean Food is our core business. That's an online business. You can get home delivery anywhere in Perth and the southwest. We have our oat milk, Dirty Clean Food oat milk, and of course lupin. What we've really demonstrated though is that the term regenerative, when we started this business 8 years ago, I live down in Williams with my family. The term regenerative, it was quite new. It was really more a statement of intent than a real clear definition of farming practices. And really on those 8 years, that's really shifted from qualitative stories about no bare soil, reduction of chemical fertilisers, elimination of fungicides, really into quantitative measures. So we're now embracing a natural capital accounting system on all our farms, using some really exciting technology to measure soil organic carbon through remote technologies, measuring biodiversity on farm and water cycle as well. So the farmer knows they're going in the right way, but also the consumer can understand that as well. And that lovely bar chart there, which I love, 3 years of sustained double-digit quarterly growth, shows that consumers are on this journey with us, and that's a big part of our business model. So that business model is what we describe as an infinity loop, so trying to bring regenerative farmers closer to conscious consumers. David used that term a lot. It's really consumers who just really care about the provenance, the impact on the farmland, the nutrition of the food. They are, you look at any global marketing report from all the big marketers, they are the burgeoning group. They are the what are they now? Gen Zs? I don't know, so old I've forgotten. And the millennials, but I mean all of us, from Gen X to boomers, we all want nutritious food that does the right thing by the farmer and the farmland. And a little reference there, we are the first ASX listed company that's got 4 returns in our shareholder constitution. So if you do buy a share in us, you've got to understand that the board's going to make decisions on financial, natural, social and inspirational parameters. So we are, very quick one, we are absolutely committed, that the food and farming system is the #1 solution to climate change, that we can all make a change as we have over lunch, over what you eat and how you impact the landscapes where you source your food from. And we think it's an undertold story, absolutely underbaked, undertold story. Everyone's talking about power generation, everyone's talking about electric cars and Teslas. Very few people are having a conversation about food, but that's starting to shift, and we're happy to be a part of that. So I've talked a bit about our relationship, and we believe in regenerative farming systems, and we want to move beyond just a transactional relationship with our farmers. We want to help them on this journey of building natural capital in soil, biodiversity, water cycle, and that's a big part of how we try and create long-term sticky relationships with our suppliers. There's a couple of them, all lovely people. So Dave has alluded to it, and there's so many different numbers out there. But, in essence, plant-based is exploding. If you're not going to go vegan and not going to go vegetarian, you're more than likely having conversations either with yourself, your family, your friends, about reducing the amount of animal meat in your diet. And that's not a bad thing, because we've got another 2 billion people coming in the next 30 years. So we've all got to understand where this protein is going to come from. And really, Australian sweet lupin is such an awesome source, as David and the Lupin Co have seen. So what we are targeting is multiple food and drink categories. And really what we've come to understand as we've become more sort of networked in the food ingredient and consumer food product world is that they look at it in these categories. And they're all, well, you add them up, they're $100 billion sort of categories. So that's very exciting. Stephen said, yeah, we're a startup, we call ourselves a growth company now. We're not really, we're still a startup, we're pretty profitable, but we need to communicate a story that we are in these markets where there's major growth coming. So we love it in our oat milk, and I'll talk more about that. The burger, the impossible foods that David talked about, the Beyond Meats, they're starting to level out a little bit, and I think the hybrids, again, that David mentioned, is an exciting market there. Definitely the alt dairies are a big market. And then the protein powder. You know, our number is you can buy whey protein for like $60 a kilo in those horrible plastic tubs in Coles. Yet we really think plant-based proteins are really going to start to absorb that market. So that's a 60,000 tonne market. So now to us and lupins, where are we? We've called it BUNTINE protein. That stems from our relationship with one of our non-exec directors, Stuart McAlpine, who took us up to BUNTINE Primary School in 2016 and said, hey, they're going to close the primary school because we don't have enough kids here. It's going to be the end of the community. So we worked very hard with Stuart to try and save that school. Didn't work out, but it's just a bit of a nod of respect to Stuart and also that town. So what is it? Well, it's derived from lupins, and I'm sure all of you here would know actually more about the agronomy, the chemistry and the benefits of lupins. But I've been learning fast, and I guess what really reaches out to consumers when we talk to ingredient buyers, when we talk to consumer-facing brands and our own MPD team at Dirty Clean Food, they love the non-GMO. So soy is the behemoth in plant-based proteins. It's a $5 to $8 billion per annum market. It absolutely dominates, but it's totally on the nose with consumers. They've got question marks about its growing practices, high chemical use, high water use, phytoestrogens. I know that scientific literature's a bit left and right on that, but it's got this kind of bit of an odour about it, some of the people say. So people are actively now looking for new sources of plant-based proteins, really actively. So what we have is a global commercial licence to a technology that was developed right here at Curtin University. Stuart Johnson and a PhD student, Haida Al-Ali, from Iraq, who is now our senior food scientist, I'm happy to say, Curtin had down, this is sort of Stuart's version, I'm paraphrasing, had gone down a number of sort of really cul-de-sacs looking at how they could really isolate the protein and the fibre so that they could be applied as an ingredient in multiple food categories. Fibre he'd gone a long way down, and then protein became really hot. And really, Haida's PhD was to start to look at, well, how can we change the profile of this lupin protein to basically make it more attractive to more customers? And a key challenge with the lupin protein in an ingredient form is actually its ability to blend. So you really just wanted the protein to unfold and to have more receptors, so it can blend in a milk, in a dairy, in a meat, in a noodle, in a much more easier way. So ingredient suppliers are looking for ease, absolute ease. That's really, they look for techno-function and ease of just slipping it in. Take soy out, take pea out, put lupin in, and that's really the technology that Haida and Stuart developed. So we took it at beaker scale. It was literally 5 grams a day he could make. No one had ever tasted it. No one really knew what it was going to do. We had a PhD behind it, but no one really understood how it was going to work. We took that lab technology to CSIRO, have a great relationship with the team there, Phil and the team out at Werribee, and they piloted it. And with us optimising it in the lab, we got it to a point where we could make it, and you can see it there in a tray form. So it's a very nice sort of light yellow. They like colours important. Nice light yellow is good. It also has almost a neutral flavour, which is great. Soy and pea have kind of a beany, starchy flavour that often they have to add additives or flavours on the top of. So that's the process flow and that we've been through. Here is the pilot plant, where really we're now at a point very close to commissioning our pilot plant. That really allows us to build. We loved our relationship with CSIRO, but we understood if we don't know how to make it ourselves, we'll easily drift for this to become a East Coast-based manufacturing business. So yeah, we brought it in-house. We raised money to do that, and it has cost us significant capital to get it to this point. But we're really excited that we're getting really close now to full commissioning. And then we've really taken a major milestone where we've shown that there is market validation for this Buntine protein, and we signed an offtake agreement for 60% of our pilot production before we've even turned it on with Monday Nissan. So Monday Nissan own a whole group of brands in Australia. Nice brands, I like them, like Peckish and Black Swan Dips, Nudie Drinks. They do some dips. Oh, it's Black Swan. So they are owned by a global food company called Monday Nissan Global, who also own Quorn, which is Quorn, largest selling plant-based meat in Europe, about 14% of market share. They know their plant-based proteins, and they came up and said, yeah, we want to take this protein. So we really feel like that's a major step forward. And in the meantime, we're also developing our own high-protein oat milk. So it's great, and thanks again to GIWA for letting us supply the cold coffee. Mary's just spilled it on the table, but that's all right. No, she doesn't like it. That's an example of how we're taking our oat milk, our dirty clean food oat milk, which is now sold in Woolworths in the chilled section, which I'm really proud of, and across all good independents in WA and across Australia. What we've recognised is that people are looking for innovation in flavours and tastes. So the first thing we did was put our Buntine protein into our oat milk and got a really positive response. It's got a really nice mouthfeel. We've done some independent consumer panel testing. We think that's going to be a real winner because actually against almond and soy, it's oats sort of Achilles heel. Definitely tastes better, definitely has a better environmental profile, but it's quite almost a third lower in protein than almond and soy and certainly dairy. So we think the contribution of the lupin protein, the Buntine protein, in an oat milk, it's a no-compromise plant-based dairy milk is how we're describing it, but then also a super high protein drink. You've done a run, you're feeling a bit low in energy, you smash down one of those, 20 grams of protein, yeah, that's a real boost to your protein intake. We've sent out samples and I feel like we've just only really had positive feedback. So we've really started to understand the market. The messaging is clear from the big ingredient companies that I've mentioned earlier. Soy's got to go. What's going to replace it? And we think lupin is an awesome opportunity to take some of that market, probably not the whole 1 million tonnes per annum, but certainly could be a signal to growers that there is a real proposition here going forward. So I've spoke already about our oat milk. I guess just to say, this is where we're building distribution channels, and we asked Woolies to put it in the cold store because we would like to have our produce made here in West Australia, have our oat milk and lupin protein made here in West Australia, and really push into that fresh category. So get it out of Tetra Pak. We get a lot of questions around why would a company committed to regenerative practices be using a packaging that is neither compostable nor recyclable. It's a fair comment. It's got a great life cycle assessment on carbon, but other than that, we don't really like it. So we would like to move into fresh or extended shelf life, and these relationships in Hong Kong, Singapore and Taiwan and the Middle East allow us to sort of explore and engage what's your interest in a high protein oat milk, here's Buntine protein, and just start and really build that understanding from the consumer base. So the oat milk facility is certainly under development in that we have a board that said pre-feasibility is approved. We're now moving into detailed project planning. Now what we're interested in talking about is should we co-locate a Buntine protein and an oat milk facility so that we can really bring the two products together. And also our sort of aspiration of that social return has always been around regional jobs. So that's something that we're really pursuing actively now and hopefully talking to the right people to support that. So I mentioned earlier, as a business, we are growing, and I think that's just proof of concept, well beyond proof of concept now, that people are looking for provenance in their food, and Australian sweet lupins, we believe, are going to be, a really key part of that future growth strategy. So we're working really hard to sort of, I mentioned earlier, I knew I had a few slides on this, I don't know why I spoke about it earlier on, but we're really trying to shift from qualitative stories into quantitative. So that laptop shot is a screenshot from a group called Downforce Technology, incredible satellite-based technology that can measure soil organic carbon to 30 centimetres back to 2017. We ran it on our oat farm, Steve and Kel's farm down in Williamshire. we were kind of shocked at the level of resolution, 10 metre squared resolution. Steve was literally going, hang on, I couldn't get sheep in there and there was a big pasture crop in 2020. Why is that a darker red? How do they know that? So we're pretty excited about that technology because that's always been a bit of a question around that main metric of like, are you actually building healthier soil and carbon-rich soil? Working on some aggregations around carbon and biodiverse plantings, and also starting some cloud-based technology that allows us to get the measurements around carbon and biodiversity basically from the farm straight up for our own corporate purposes, but also to share with our partners. So in closing, I just wanted to say we really are a new entrant to lupins. Like it's always been strategic that we wanted to be in what WA did best regeneratively, which was livestock, oats and lupin. But lupin actually we started with just trying to build we've always wanted to be in that value add category. We were incredibly fortunate to have, I guess, the backing and knowledge and support base of the existing players. So David and the Lupin Co have been incredibly supportive. They provided us with flour to get us off the ground. And your proposition, David, of bringing that sort of group together, common use goods, we're not up against each other. We're up against these massive international markets. Some of the large commodity players that we talk to, they don't care how, who, what, they get the job done. They're looking for profit margin. And we're a very different company to do that. And to do that, you've got to do things differently in partnerships and reinvention. So, yeah, I think this is a great opportunity and looking forward to chatting to you all during the Sundowner. So, thanks very much.
Thanks, Ben. Know a lot more about wide open agriculture than I did before. That's terrific. In the development of lupins in marketing, one of the questions that's always come up is lupin the right name? Do people know what it is? In your discussions with companies and marketing, have you thought about the name lupin? Is there another way of marketing it that's more attractive, or is lupin the right name?
Yeah, we've thought about that a lot. We've called it Buntine protein because in our B2B side, so selling it as an ingredient, it's kind of convention that you give it a bit of a trade name, and it also gives you just a bit of proprietary protection. So that's why we called it Buntine protein. But we actually think that lupins, we want to put lupins, obviously on our pack to explain it, but we think it is Australian sweet lupin that it should be called, to keep it out of that lupin. Because whenever I talk to a European, they're like, oh, the really cheap beer snacks that you get. It's like, no, it's a different lupin, and you've got to start that conversation. But Australian sweet lupin also, yeah, it has a nice name, low alkaloid level, it's got lower bitterness. So yeah, that's where we'd like to be on back of pack.
Hi Ben, Callista from the Grower Group Alliance. I love your story. I've been a huge fan all the way through. My question is, I'm looking at all these growth charts and all the potential. What's Wide Open Ag's position or thinking strategies around production, regen farmers? Just plans on that. I know you've got Stuart pumping out the lupins, but
yeah. No, it's a great question, Callista, and it's one of our top 5 risks that's identified. And so we spend a lot of time thinking and planning and strategizing around it. With our oats, we certainly feel very comfortable with the amount that we need, and we have good relationships with 8 growers that are on the journey or on the pathway of regenerative, and it's why we chose regenerative really as a practice, because it is, you can have a mindset, you can start day one, and you can be on that journey. With lupins, we've got some work to do. Stuart, has been really active in saying to us, hey, if we produce and move to commercial scale, we're going to need 40,000 tonnes of this stuff. So that process has started. We're also aware that a commercial plant will take anywhere from 12 to 24 months to produce, so we've got a bit of lead time. But what we're trying to do is really talk to the farmers that we're already active with. A lot of them are growing oats and lupins, and they're in mixed enterprises. But just trying to sort of build that network. So we have a good partnership with Regen WA, who, a lot of those farmers who are committed members to that group are already on that journey themselves. So that's kind of our first starting point. The latest we've heard, they have 200 members that are farmers. So that's kind of our sort of first point of assessing the next range of suppliers after Stuart.
So as you say, the Buntine protein is still in testing stage and not in the the commercial stage at the moment.
It's at pilot scale. So we've moved beyond testing. So we've made it as a food grade through CSIRO's food lab at Werribee, and that's allowed us to send out those international samples. And to really what happens is they check for technofunction, taste, gelation, solubility. Then they'll put it in a basic new product development. Then they'll do consumer panel testing. We've done that all the way through. But in regards to production, it's pilot scale. But the aspiration of the company is to go and take that to commercial scale, and it's back of the envelope, but it's at 10,000 metric tonnes we think is a good place to start.
Oh, okay, I'll ask one more question. So you'll be like after a few years, and not this year before it can be commercialized?
Yeah, we think it'll take at least 12 to 24 months to build a commercial plant based on experience from other companies. Yeah.
In 20 years, and you've had great success, who are going to be our competitors?
Well, we're part of an international network called Bridge to Food, and I've been amazed at Canada Pulse. They are so active and so well funded. They're doing like breeding programs, life cycle assessments, marketing campaigns. I think the Canadians are going to start to grow a lot of lupins, and we're getting asked a lot about our technology. Can it be licensed to Canada? But that's the best I've got so far. It's a good question, actually. Yeah.
Jeff Boersma. I've been working within this area for a bit, and I'm aware there's quite a range in the alkaloid levels in some of our lupins. Now the question is there a specific variety or series of varieties that are being targeted, or is the general spectrum okay?
At this stage, we've actually tested across 3 varieties. I'm not going to try and remember their names, but we've tested the technology across 3 key varieties that are grown mainly in the north, east and south. And yeah, we're finding the alkaloid levels are absolutely fine and fitting within the Fizance requirements. So at this stage, it's looking positive that we can use those 3 main varieties. Thanks.